Hi, boys and girls. If you remember, we were talking about King Ahasuerus and his new wife, Queen Esther. And remember, Esther, we're going to find out in the book of Esther, it tells us, Esther 4:14, for such a time as this. And we don't know what that is yet. And we might find out today or coming up in the next week what that means for such a time as this. But Queen Esther, she was very beautiful, and now remember, Mordecai was her cousin, and Queen Esther's parents had died, and Mordecai took care of Queen Esther. And with Queen Esther being the queen, Mordecai got a position in the courts. So he had sat in the gates of the city, and so he was kind of like a judge. So he would be out there in the city doing his city business. Well, one day he was sitting there and he heard two guards talking. Now the guards are supposed to take care of the king, protect the king, and protect the courtyard and everything, make sure everything was calm in the city. Well, these guards wanted to hurt King Ahasuerus. They wanted to kill him. So they were plotting together and talking about how they could kill King Ahasuerus. Well, Mordecai was sitting here, and Mordecai was listening to what those guards were saying. And then Mordecai went and told Queen Esther what was happening, about those guards were going to plot to kill King Ahasuerus. So Queen Esther, what do you think she did? She went and told King Ahasuerus about the guards. So King Ahasuerus had the guards arrested. They were tried. They were found guilty. And in that day, they would hang them. So they hung them. And so everything that went on was written in the book. So kind of like things that were happening in the kingdom, they would document in a book. So everything that was documented that Mordecai told Queen Esther was written in this book. And why do I say that? Because later on, that book is going to become important. So they documented everything that went on, and then years went by. Now, you have to remember, in the book of Esther, sometimes we forget that the Bible takes place over years. So Queen Esther's life was going on kind of normal. She was in the palace. She's the queen. Nobody knew that she was a Jew, because remember, Mordecai told her to keep that a secret, that she was a Jew. And so things are just happening kind of normal, like normal days like we have. And then one day Mordecai was out sitting in where the judges would sit. And this Haman here is a prince. And King Ahasuerus didn't know what kind of guy that Mordecai really was. That Haman was. Haman was kind of a mean person and was thinking about himself all the time. So Haman wanted everybody to think he was the greatest guy. And so he had all the people bow down to him. And so if you walked by Haman, you'd have to bow down, put your head way down to the ground. And, well, look here, Mordecai. Mordecai did not bow down to Haman. And the other people were noticing that Haman, every time Haman walked by, Mordecai didn't bow down to him. And so the people would ask, Mordecai, why don't you bow down to Haman like we do? And Mordecai said, well, I'm a Jew. And Jews don't bow down to men. They only worship the Lord. And so the men told Haman why Mordecai did not bow down to him. So remember, nobody knew that they were Jews. And because Mordecai didn't tell anybody he was a Jew, Esther didn't tell anybody that she was a Jew. But Haman came from a group of people that did not like Jews. And so that made Haman pretty mad. And he thought, I'm going to kill Mordecai. But instead of saying, I'm just going to kill Mordecai, he's like, I'm going to kill all the Jews. So he started to get a plot together to think how he could kill all the Jews. And he came up with a suggestion. And he went to King Ahasuerus. And he's like, Almighty King, there's a group of people who we don't like, and they don't want to worship you. They don't want to worship us. Now, he didn't tell them what the group of people was. King Ahasuerus never asked him what the group of people was. So King Ahasuerus didn't really know what Haman was planning. And so Haman told King Ahasuerus to make a law that all the Jews would be killed. He didn't tell him all the Jews would be killed. He just said, we need to make everybody worship you. And if they don't, then they need to be destroyed. Well, that sounded pretty good to King Ahasuerus. Everybody should bow down and worship us, and if they don't, we'll get rid of them. Well, Haman convinced King Ahasuerus to make a law and to send it out to all the people in the Persian Empire that if they did not bow down and worship King Ahasuerus, then they would be put to death. Well, the men took that decree and they wrote out. Now remember, the Persian Empire is pretty big. So we have it going all the way here. The men have to go from Shushan all the way over to the west, all the way over to the east. So they have to travel by horseback to go to all these pink places on the map to send out the new law that said that they needed to bow down and worship. And in that decree and in that law stated that it was going to be the Jews that were going to be destroyed, that were going to be killed. Because remember, Haman didn't like the Jews, and he was mad at Mordecai, and so he came up with the plot just to get rid of all the Jews. That would make him very happy. So that the men were riding out, telling all the people. Now, people in Shushan that lived right there where the palace was, they would find out first because they were closest to where the men were passing out that decree. And so Mordecai found out that Haman was going to plot to kill them. And it's going to be on the 13th day of the 12th month. Now, that's not really important to us, which day and which month, but it was in the future. So the Jews knew that coming up, they were all going to be killed. So the decree was to tell everybody through the Persian Empire that they could kill the Jews on the 13th day of the 12th month, and they could take all their stuff. Well, that would make the Jews quite upset to know that in the future that they were plotting on being killed. So Mordecai, he put on what's called sackcloth and spread ashes on. And that was just a way for the Jewish people to cry out to the Lord. And so Mordecai put on sackcloth and ashes, and obviously quite distressed because Haman was plotting to kill them and all the Jews. And so why Mordecai was dressed like this, though, he could not come near the palace. So he couldn't come visit Queen Esther. And Queen Esther was wondering what's going on. So Queen Esther sent some new clothes to Mordecai and said, here, Mordecai, put these new clothes on so you can come see me. And Mordecai said no. And so then Esther was trying to figure out what was going on because she hadn't heard yet. So Mordecai sent a messenger back to Queen Esther, and she told him that Haman was going to kill all the Jews on the 13th day of the 12th month, and that he asked Esther to go talk to King Ahasuerus to convince him not to kill the Jews. Now remember, Mordecai's a Jew, Esther is a Jew also. So Mordecai tells Esther, and here's our verse, Esther 4:14, for such a time as this. Mordecai tells Esther, what if you're in the kingdom for such a time as this? God placed you in the palace with King Ahasuerus for such a time as this, because she was going to be used to save the Jewish people. And sometimes, boys and girls, we don't know why God has us someplace. And sometimes it might be years before we find out what God's planning and why we're going through certain things or hard times and so sometimes we don't find out. We just have to trust the Lord. Now remember our other verse, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. Boys and girls, sometimes we go through things, might be a hard time. Maybe we have to move to a new home or a new school, and we just have to trust. We have to trust our parents, and we have to trust in the Lord that he's going to help us through some difficult times that we might be having. And Queen Esther needed to trust the Lord because she needed to go talk to King Ahasuerus. And boys and girls, in that day, the queen, even though she was married to King Ahasuerus and she was the queen, she was not able to go just talk to the king anytime she wanted to. So she knew that if the king was mad because she was just coming in to talk to him, that she could be put to death. So Queen Esther was praying, and she asked all the Jews to pray and ask God to help them because she was going to go talk to King Ahasuerus. She had the girls in the palace that took care of Queen Esther. She had them praying also. So in the Bible, Bible tells us that they were praying and fasting. And fasting means they were going without food during some time that they were praying because they were really, really intently praying because they needed to go talk to the king. And boys and girls, we're going to find out next time what happens when Queen Esther goes talk to King Ahasuerus.
Hey boys and girls, welcome back to AWANA. I'm Josh the Game Guy. It's day 57, I'm still on the run. I've been living off the bare essentials, eating crumbs from my kitchen table, and if I can, sneak something from the fridge. For tonight's game, you're going to have a balloon and spin around 10 times in a circle till you're dizzy. Then, while you're still dizzy, throw the balloon in the air and try to keep it in the air as long as possible without it touching the ground. That's all for tonight's game. Have fun.